Skyhawk by Jill Lewis. So, really quick recap, they have been tracking the journey of Iris as she migrates to Africa. And after thinking that they lost her and that her journey was over, luckily she was found quickly again and picked up as an orange dot. Can you remember where she was picked up? That is the question. After being lost in the Sahara Desert. Chapter 24. I plotted Iris's journey in my diary over the following weeks and downloaded photos of some of the places she had flown across. One was the bizarre Riche structure in Mauritania, a pattern of huge circles in the desert that NASA scientists could see from space. She flew across towns with strange names such as Khazar el Barka and Boutalamet. There were photos of whole villages gradually being swallowed up by huge sand dunes and photos of camel trains heading into pale desert dawns. Iris's flight took her south and west into Senegal and on to the Gambia. Her long migration came to an end along the banks of the river Gambia, not far from its opening to the sea. I looked at photos of the area. Dense green mangrove swamps and palms came down to the water's edge. Crocodiles slept on domed mud banks at low tide. Fishermen mended nets alongside brightly painted boats. 23rd of September, 8 a.m. Mangrove Swamp, the Gambia. 13/16/28.05 north, 16/28/58.14 west. Speed 0 kilometers per hour. Total distance 6,121.23 kilometers. It was so different from the lochs and mountains of Scotland, and it had only taken her 39 days to travel all the way. Hamish said some ospreys they had tracked made the flight in much less time. Each day after that, Iris's signals came from the same area. Her flight pattern made zigzags across a small river inlet where she fished to roost trees in the river banks. She seemed settled, and I didn't check her position so often. I would have to wait until March before she started our migration north to Scotland again. I sat down at the computer in my bedroom to check on her position. I hadn't logged on for a couple of days. I turned on the computer, ready to tap in Iris's code. A stone pinged against my bedroom window. Just as I did, I opened the window to see Rob and Ewan in the yard below on their bikes. "Are you coming, Callum? We're going up to the top trails." I looked up at the hills. The trees blazed red and gold in the October sunshine. It was a perfect day. "Coming," I yelled. Iris would have to wait. I logged off and grabbed my fleece. Rob was wearing a bright new helmet, black with silver stripes. "It's a present from my mum," said Rob. "She got called in by Trollface. I thought I was in trouble, but Trollface just wanted to tell her how well I was doing. An enthusiastic approach to geography," she said. "Can't think why," said Ewan, with a grin. We headed out around the back of the farm. Even Rob had to push his bike up the hill. We pushed and pulled our bikes up the rutted dry steam beds in sheep tracks. When we reached the top, we flopped down in the heather. "It's still there, then," said Ewan. He was looking across to the osprey eyrie on the island. There had been some stormy nights since the ospreys left. "Dad and Hamish went up and fixed it to the top," I said. Why do you reckon they migrate?" said Rob. "I mean, why bother? Why not just stay here?" "Too cold in the winter, probably," I said. "So why not stay in Africa, then?" said Rob, "where it's hot and there is always fish." I shrugged my shoulders. "Maybe their nests are safer here. I mean, it's not as if we have monkeys or snakes and things to eat the eggs or young birds." "Some people steal them," said Ewan. "Bunch of weirdos," I said. "That's what Hamish calls them." "Come on," said Rob. We followed him along the top trail across the ridge of the hill. It was smooth riding, with a few gullies to whiz down and up the other side. The sky was summer sky blue, and it reflected in the loch below. "Hey, down here," said Rob. He turned his bike down a steep track through the pine forest. We followed Rob's trail in and out of the trees. The branches were so low I had to duck right down not to be knocked off. We shot out of the dark pines into an open bit of forest Dad had cleared and replanted with native trees. We whizzed past the young saplings fenced off from deer and down into the woods of oak and wild cherry that lined the loch. Rob skidded to a stop in a ring of white boulders. I hadn't realised we'd come so near to the tree house. It was only yards away. "What is this place?" said Rob. "We've never been here before." Ewan was off his bike and walking around the circle of the stones. "It's like they were placed here," he said. "Let's go," I said. "We've only just got here," said Rob. He scrambled up on the top of one boulder. A shaft of sunlight broke through on his face. "Perfect," he said. He lay back against the stone and closed his eyes. If he looked up now, he would see the tree house right above him. I didn't want to tell him about it, not yet. I couldn't face going back up there. I pushed my bike down towards the track by the loch, and I waited. "What's up with you, Cal?" shouted Ewan. "I'm starving," I said. "Let's see if Mum will give us some food." Rob jumped down to join us, and we cycled slowly along the track. Autumn leaves, blood red, floated on the dark waters of the loch and clogged together round the edges of the shore. "Who's that?" said Ewan. A figure in a blue shirt and jeans stood at the far end of the loch. "That's Hamish," I said, "the wildlife officer I was telling you about." I pushed my way in front of Rob and cycled ahead of the others. "Hi, Hamish," I said. Rob and Ewan pulled up beside us on their bikes. "This is Rob," I said. "And Ewan." Hamish nodded at them, but he didn't have his usual cheery smile. "It doesn't look good, does it?" he said. "What?" I didn't know what he was talking about. "Iris," he said. "Haven't you noticed?" "I haven't checked on her for a day or two," I said. Hamish shook his head. "She's not moved position for 3 days. Her signal is coming from a mangrove swamp. She hasn't made any flights to fish or find new roost sites. It doesn't look good." I kicked the ground. I should have checked on her. "It's not like you can do anything," said Rob. "I made a promise," I said. "I promised Iona I would look after Iris." "Rob's right," said Hamish. He put his hand on my shoulder. "There's nothing you can do. Ospreys face loads of dangers. It's only now we're tracking them we know how many survive and actually make the long migration." I shook off Hamish. "I made a promise," I said. "Callum!" said Hamish. "I'll find a way," I yelled. I pushed off down the rutted track along the loch, but all I could see ahead of me was a knotted maze of waterways reaching into dense green mangrove swamp. Chapter 25. "Absolutely not." "But why not?" I said. Mum thumped the casserole down on the table. "For a start, we can't afford it. Then you've got to have loads of jabs and tablets for malaria weeks before you even think of going there. And you're 11, for crying out loud. The answer's no, Callum. You're not going to the Gambia, and that's my final decision." I stood up. "I'm not hungry," I said. "Sit down, Callum," said Dad. He dished a pile of potatoes on my plate. Even if we could get out there, what then? We don't know anything about the place. How would we find her in a mangrove forest? It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack." "So that's it, is it?" I shouted. "Give up, just like that?" "Yes, Callum," said Dad. "That's exactly what we do. We can't do anything from here. She's a wild bird. You know that." I slammed my knife and fork down and stormed up to my room. I flicked the computer on and looked for Iris's signal. It hadn't moved for 3 days. How could I have not noticed? I should have checked on her. I should have checked. I zoomed in as far as I could get. I could almost see the individual trees. Iris was in there somewhere. I wanted to reach in through the computer and just pick her up. Maybe I could somehow get to the Gambia by myself. I looked up tourist information on the web. There were masses of hotels along the coast and smaller camps and eco-lodges inland along the river. They all had addresses and websites. Of course, that was it. I needed to contact someone in the Gambia to look for Iris. I wrote email after email to hotels, eco-lodges, companies specialising in bird-watching trips. I emailed a church group, a hospital. I even tried to email the Gambian government. Now all I could do was wait. Dad came up to my room with my supper. "I'm sorry," he said. He placed the plate on the desk beside me. "It's not your fault, you know." "I know. I just should have checked on her." Dad put his arms around my shoulders. "It's not your fault Iona died." I just stared into the deep, deep blue of the computer screen. Chapter 26. Rob and Ewan came home with me after school the next day. "Have you had any replies?" said Ewan. I shook my head. No. Only 2 emails, which was because they bounced back, unable to connect, and another advertising cheap flights and hotels. Rob sat down at my desk. "Come on then," he said. "Let's see if anyone else has replied." He switched on my computer. Ewan and I leaned over his shoulder. The computer took an age to warm up. Rob flicked onto my emails. "Please let there be an email. Please let there be an email," I thought. Rob pressed the send receive icon. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Receiving messages. 1 message received. From Geneva Carr. Sent 8th of October, 15:30 GMT. And there is the email. "Hello, Callum. My name is Geneva Carr. Dr. Jawara opened your email and asked me to write to you. He said it would be good for my English. I think maybe this is an excuse, and Dr. Jawara is hoping for a little rest from my questions. Maybe one day I will be a great doctor like him, and someone will ask me the questions. But this is good, because I've not had a go on a computer before. I like the photo of your bird. I am sorry. I have not seen her, though. I am in hospital and too far from the river. But I have seen birds like her fish in the river near my village. We call them calangago. They like to fish when the river tide is far in, or far out. My father is a fisherman, and he is always happy to see the calangago, or osprey as you call them, come home. They bring him luck to catch many fish. When my father and brother come to visit me tomorrow, I will ask them to search for her. Scotland is very far away. I have just looked on a map. From Geneva, age 10. Are you a girl or a boy? I'm a girl." Rob slapped his hands on the desk. "Result!" he shouted. Ewan stared at the screen. "You've done it," he said. "You've actually done it." I couldn't stop grinning. "I can't believe it," I said. "There's really someone out there who can help us. We'll find Iris now. I know we will." "Right back then," said Rob. "What, now?" I said. "To her, to Geneva?" Rob nodded. "Well, yeah, who else do you think you're going to write to?" My hands hovered over the computer keys. I looked up at Ewan. "But what shall I say?" Ewan rolled his eyes. "Just say thanks very much and tell us when you find Iris to let us know." "Okay," I said, "okay." I took a deep breath and I started typing. From Callum. Sent 8th of October, 1643 GMT. Subject looking for Iris. "Hello, Geneva. Thanks very much, and please tell me if you find Iris. Callum, boy, 11. "There," I said. "It's a bit short." Rob sat back in the chair. "It's fine," he said. "Just send it off. No good staring at it." I pressed the send icon and watched the message disappear. "All we can do now is wait," I said. I looked for Iris's position after supper, but she had completely disappeared from the screen. It's nearly night time, I told myself. The solar battery isn't charged. It can't give out its signal. But a deeper fear stirred uneasily within me. I had to believe in tomorrow. I had to believe that Iris was still alive. Chapter 27. The next day, I woke up with a sore throat. It was a Saturday, cold and grey. Dad had gone off early to market, and Graham was away for the weekend with friends. Mum wrapped me in a duvet and put me in the front of the TV. I hardly moved all day except to check my emails. I had one reply from a birding holiday company who said they didn't go to that part of the Gambia, but still nothing from Geneva. I watched the hands of the grandfather clock creep slowly round and round. The afternoon light outside faded into darkness. The TV blared on. Cartoons, football, quiz programmes and golf. Dad came home with Chinese takeaway and bottles of Coke. "Look who's here," said Dad. Hamish came in and sat next to me on the sofa. "I heard about your email," he said. "It's amazing. You've actually made contact with someone who can look for Iris." I shrugged my shoulders. "Seems like a long shot," I said. "I haven't heard back from the Gambian girl today." Mum came in with bowls of chicken chow mein and put them on the small table by the TV. "You said you'd find a way," said Hamish. "I've left it too late," I said. "You don't know that," said Dad. "You've got this far when everyone else was prepared to give up." "Get that down in writing," laughed Mum. "Dad never admits to being wrong." "I mean it," said Dad. "It just shows you, doesn't it, what you can do when you really want something." Hamish nodded and picked up a bowl and a pair of chopsticks. I wasn't that hungry, so I left them watching a game show and dragged my duvet up the stairs. I turned on my computer and waited. It wasn't until bedtime that another email came from Geneva. From Geneva Carr, sent 9th of October, 21:00 GMT. Subject: looking for Iris. Hello, Callum. No news. I'm sorry. My father and brother went fishing today, and I've been looking for Iris. I wish I could have gone with them, but I cannot. An American student doctor called Max went with them. He used his GPS to try and find her. Max said they went to the place where Iris's last signal came from, but she wasn't there. The Kalunjango are very important to the fishermen. My father says he will visit the marabout. He is our village wise man. The marabout is blind, but he sees things other people cannot see. Maybe he can help find Iris. My father did not catch any fish today. I hope to bring you some better news tomorrow. Geneva. I phoned Hamish on his mobile. I told him they didn't find Iris at the place of her last signal, and now her signal had disappeared. I could almost hear Hamish's disappointment on the phone. He said maybe the harness holding the transmitter had broken and come off. They were designed to break eventually. Maybe she was fine, and she was still flying around. But I knew that she could as easily be in the belly of a crocodile somewhere. It was now 5 days since Iris had stopped moving. I couldn't help thinking something was wrong. If she was alive, she'd be weak with hunger by now. We were running out of time. Does not look very good for Iris. It definitely looks a bit bleak. Let's find out next time what has happened.